Aspects of Occultism by Dion. Narrated by Matthew Schmitz. 7. Teachings concerning the aura. The aura is a less simple structure than is often supposed. It may be conceived of as an ovoid sphere, extending to arm's length beyond the physical body. The aura's size and clarity vary according to its owner's development. The ovoid sphere usually consists of a magnetic field containing 3 concentric levels or layers, which in fact interpenetrate each other, but which are clairvoyantly perceived as bands of different colors. Permeating and conditioning this magnetic field is a dual circuit of force, the cosmic current of the microcosm, which develops throughout evolution and which links the divine spark to the magnetic core of the earth during each incarnation. The central circuit of this current gives the human being his energy, and the peripheral circuit, which arises out of the central, is concerned with the organization of that energy. In the central circuit also is that part of the aura which is in contact with the great unmanifest. As seen by clairvoyance, the vehicles of the human being emanate bands of auric force, which appear as colored strata of different types. The aura is not necessarily observed by clairvoyance each time in its entirety. Sometimes only one band is seen at a time, and the rest is either dim or invisible. The 3 bands, when the aura is seen in its entirety, may be described as follows. 1. The magnetic or health aura. This is the innermost band of the auric field, since it is clairvoyantly seen to emanate from the physical body, and its condition indicates that body's health. This emanation varies from a faint grayish cloud to a strong, silvery light. It has been sometimes asserted that the aura is electric, and if this is true, there may be means found for detecting it since scientific instruments already exist, such as the electrocardiograph and the electroencephalograph, for discovering the body's electricity. Long ago, a claim was made by Kilner that the aura could be thus registered, but prejudice and overstatement disqualified the pretensions of the Kilner screens. 2. Next to the health aura, clairvoyance perceives an area suffused with colors denoting the predominating mood or temperament. This is the astral aura. In this section, there will be a predominance of yellow if the person be intellectual, or blue if he be musical. Art, materialism, love, lust, fear, and depression are equally observed in their corresponding tints in these astral emanations. Chakras, lotuses, or wheels of force are really in all levels of the aura, but those popularized in textbooks usually refer to the astral section and are at 7 important points therein, which correlate with the nervous system. 3. The outermost band of auric substance, stretching out beyond the astral, links up with the individuality. This band, seen clairvoyantly, is composed of rainbow colors and of rays of light. It holds contacts with the essential self, non-human beings, and other cosmic potencies, as well as with esoteric guides of past and present lives. It is here also that indications of spiritual connection with esoteric groups can be discerned. These 3 sections of the aura represent the etheric, astromental, and spiritual levels of consciousness, which are seen to be developed or otherwise according to the brilliancy and size of the bands of light portraying them clairvoyantly. Auras of masters can extend to a much greater degree than those of less evolved men, and if a master is working in conjunction with his pupil, the latter's aura is often enclosed within the master's as well as being itself much expanded. An exercise said to be useful to help in seeing the aura is to focus the eyes on space, gazing through the person being studied. Then imagine him as a nude astral figure round which the 3 bands of the aura spontaneously build up. For such work, you will use the pineal gland, or center of awareness between the eyebrows. As is well known, all psychic experiments must be kept under the control of the will and must not be tried when tired or emotionally disturbed. It should also be unnecessary to emphasize here that such visions only take place subjectively. It will be found that when the 3rd band of the aura, linking with the higher self, is being inspected, consciousness will be spiritually exalted and tend to diffusion into the higher self, whereas when the astral and etheric bands of the aura are being studied, personal consciousness will be magically concentrated on those planes. The tree of life should be built up in the aura and much realization as to character and development can be experienced by the manner in which the Sephiroth and pillars appear. It is also helpful to build up in the same way the astrological chart and observe the influences which this chart may suggest. It is, however, well to bear in mind that astrology should be treated neither as an exact science nor as a superstition, but as an illuminative method of analysis and philosophy. There are various books on the aura which will repay study. Specially recommended are those by C.W. Ledbetter and his pupil A.E. Powell. Further teaching on this subject of auras by Dion is here appended. This concerns the aura in relation to polarity. The central circuit of magnetic force in the aura, passing between the divine spark and the soul of the earth, is the basic factor of individual manifestation. It may be conceived of as emanating from the divine spark, looping round the magnetic core of the earth and returning to the divine spark again. It is the passing of the current through the magnetic core of the earth that determines incarnation. The secondary magnetic circuit in the aura, the peripheral circuit, arises out of the emanations of the primary circuits, interacting with environmental factors. This circuit is sensitive to the changing play of these factors, whereas the primary central circuit is immune to all external influences. Between the two is a magnetic field, the aura itself. Within the aura are different forms of activity, and these give rise to the multicolored bands described by clairvoyance. The central circuit remains unaffected by all extraneous conditions, its voltage rising and falling, and the direction of the flow of the current changing according to esoteric constant factors. The peripheral circuit, however, is highly sensitive, the centers in it corresponding to the external factors, reacting to every change in these factors, such changes being due to the permutations and combinations of the cosmic factors, reinforcing, modifying, or counteracting each other as is described in the judging of a horoscope. The available energy in an aura is derived from its central magnetic circuit, but the organization of that energy within the aura is affected by the influences to which the peripheral circuit is exposed. These set up currents within the magnetic field of the two circuits. These cross currents establish equilibrium in the course of time and become stabilized centers and systems, as described in the cosmic doctrine. Although that teaching refers actually to the genesis of the universe, it is equally applicable to the development of the aura of the individual. The tree of life is a cross-section of the aura. What is true of it is also true of the universe. The more highly developed the aura, the greater what may be best described as its surface tension, a kind of skin of resistance formed by the interweaving of magnetic circuits. These arise from outgoing rays of emanation, obeying the law of the curvature of force and returning upon themselves at their point of emanation. The tension gradually increases, causing, as it were, a shrinking and tightening of the circuits, until finally a tensely resistive surface of magnetic loops is established. This constitutes the exterior envelope of the aura. This phase having been reached, the tension within the magnetic field rises steadily because force is no longer being lost, the rays being re-entrant. Now comes the time when openings can be made in the aura and rays of force projected, for sufficient force has now been accumulated for such projections to be possible. But be it observed that these emanations are from the magnetic field and not from the central circuit. This fact explains certain discrepancies that may have appeared in the teaching. All exchange of magnetism takes place from the field of induction, not from the central circuit, which is the source of the energy. The primal source of all force, the divine spark in the great unmanifest, possesses infinite energy and is therefore unaffected by such emanations or losses, but the potential of the magnetic field is affected by them, just as it is changed in its modes and distribution by the influences affecting the peripheral circuit. The more highly evolved the surface organization of the aura, however, the less is it affected by external influences, save where centers for the reception of different types of force are developed. In the course of the evolution of an aura, then, it goes through the following phases. A primary phase of complete unresponsiveness to all influences save the flux and reflux of the central magnetic current, which corresponds to the prenatal life of the personality or lower self. A developing phase, during which sensitivity is increasing, which corresponds to the youth of the incarnated personality. A mature phase, during which the receptivity of the periphery is being brought into equilibrium with the resistiveness of the central core, and thus under the control of the divine spark, and a final phase, during which receptivity is lessening and the activity of the now highly developed aura is concentrating around the fluctuations of the central circuit. These phases take place in the course of an evolution. Each incarnation sees the resumption of the different forms of activity which characterize the different planes of manifestation. Each discarnation sees the discontinuance of such forms of activity, but the activity of the central core never ceases during the whole course of evolution, and it is its perpetual flux, reflux, and permutations which constitute the ever-changing pattern of existence. All things are reducible to these terms, and when thus reduced become explicable and predictable. By an understanding of the nature and interplay of these factors, the control of the forces manifesting within the auric sphere can be attained. The personality, which builds up out of the emanations of the peripheral circuit, is negative to its environment and conditioned thereby, but the individuality, or higher self, is organized around the central magnetic core and is responsive to the influence of the divine spark, which obeys laws that are beyond our comprehension as incarnate beings and are comprehensible only in terms of the consciousness that can rise to the plane where they operate. This knowledge, however, can be translated and transmitted by reflection and deduction in consciousness suitably conditioned, and it is the work of the mysteries to effect such conditioning, and also to teach the lore of the peripheral circuit in its relationship to the universe. Upon this theoretical basis, all practical occult tradition is built up, and it should be thoroughly grasped by those who would make of the occult arts a science. The practical teaching is based upon, and explicable by, the principles outlined in these teachings upon the aura. It must always be borne in mind that the aura is fundamentally a self-contained unit, unaffected by external conditions, that it starts its evolution in this state and returns to it, after passing through a phase of susceptibility to modifications in its activities by external influences, but immune from any alteration in its basic organization and existence. After a certain point in its development is reached, it becomes increasingly independent of external influences, but up to that point, though not dependent upon such influences for its existence, it is dependent upon them for the stimulation of its activities and can equally be subject to the inhibiting or deforming of its development through their unbalanced or adverse influence. Adverse, that is to say, to a given phase of activity. Once a state of independence of external influence has been reached by the development in centers within the aura corresponding to the external factors, centers that can specialize the activities of the primary energy of the central circuit in the same way as the cosmic centers so specialize it, the entity can, by closing all outgoing emanations, raise the voltage of its magnetic field, and so have energy available for the projection of emanations. It can determine the type of these emanations, as distinguished from a general radiation of energy, if it is able to close its sphere to all external influences and generate energy of a specific type by the concentration of the basic energy in a given center. This is the method of the adepti. When complete immunity from external influences is achieved, the entity is completely self-acting. During the intermediate phases of acquiring sensitivity and achieving the control of and determining immunity to sensitivity, the skillful use of stimuli is a valuable technique of function. Likewise, the skillful use of the art of immunization, which is its corollary. Sensitivity to stimuli is achieved by concentration on the peripheral circuit, immunization by the concentration on the central circuit. To achieve these techniques, the imagination visualizes the circuits as diagrammatic glyphs with the aid of the tree of life and that simplified chart of the heavens, which is used for astrological purposes. The tree of life is used in relation to the central circuit, and the chart of the heavens in relation to the peripheral circuit. The adept builds these up as clearly visualized pictures, the former of his aura and the latter of his environment. For simplicity's sake, they are highly stylized pictures, symbolic, and charged with mythical meaning. The story of Guinevere is such a myth related to the glyph of Yesod, Hod, and Netzach. The myths relate to the force aspect and the glyphs to the form aspect of manifestation.